Story 1. Once as a child, they told me that in Grand Theft Auto Vice City, there is a secret code for winter to appear. I even wrote it on a piece of paper. For a long time, I thought that I was simply entering the cheat code incorrectly. Story 2. I am not having an affair. I think I am asexual. My ex-wife, who certainly was having an affair and not in the slightest bit asexual. Story 3. When I was a kid, we would often drive to the town over to visit my cousins. One of the roads passed through some ponds, one of which had a peculiar-looking branch that had fallen over. I always noticed it, would point it out to everyone in the car, and one day my dad said it was a crocomigator, as a joke since we had just watched some Crocodile Dundee before heading out. In my head, it made sense. I knew how alligators could lay dormant for months at a time with a low heart rate, so the fact it wouldn't move just meant it was hibernating. Years go by, parents split, my dad passes away. I still look out for this crocomigator, get to high school, still looking out at the pond to look at this fallen tree, not really remembering why. Then one day I am like 19, my mom, brother, and I are driving on the same road. I instinctively check the pond and it's not there. The memories flooded back and I say, "God damn it." My mom asked me what was wrong and it took me a bit to stop laughing, but I explained the story of the crocomigator, and we all laughed at how a silly looking log in the water and my dad managed to trick me for years. Story 4. Ex-wife telling me how disgusting cheaters are and how they are the scum of the earth. Guess why I am divorced? Story 5. I will never lie to you ever again. I knew that was a lie, but I chose to fall for it. The self-blame is really hard now. Story 6. The belief that each second between lightning and thunder represents a mile distance was something I held true. It wasn't until my third year of studying for my degree in physics that I learned everything I had believed was incorrect. In fact, it's 5 seconds per mile, by the way. Story 7. I don't remember the biggest lie, but my dad has a bald spot, and when I was a kid, he told me and my siblings that he got it from going to bed while chewing gum and they had to cut it out the next day. You bet none of us ever went to bed with gum after that. Story 8. That a large man in a red suit traveled the entire world in one night in a sleigh pulled by magic flying reindeer, delivering presents to all the good children. But only to the good children. Bad children can get bent. And he knows who is who because he is always watching. Story 9. Decaffeinated coffee removed caffeine from my body. Estimated time of arrival. You all, I know what it is. I believed decaffeinated coffee was a way to remove caffeine from the human body. Believed. Story 10. That focusing on education, rather than on developing social skills and meaningful connections, will be enough to lead a fulfilling and prosperous life. Thanks, Mom, you had the best intentions. Story 11. I love you. We will be together forever and nothing will change that. Apparently, another man's actions changed that. Story 12. Don't any of you laugh. Okay, I used to be super naive. Years ago, I was walking around with a fat stack of cash in my hand. A scruffy man from afar saw me and approached me, asking if he could hold it. Sure, I said, not seeing the problem with a complete stranger holding my money. So I placed the money in the palm of his hands. Then he said, "I'll be right back." Guess what? He never came back. I know you're laughing. Stop. Story 13. First time in Manhattan. I'm all starry-eyed. This was back in the winter of 2014. Anyway, I'm walking around Times Square and a guy was selling last-minute tickets to Louis C.K. in the nearby comedy club. I was like, wow, what a deal. Louis C.K. for $20. It turns out that Louis C.K. doesn't perform at a rundown comedy club at 10 p.m. on a Tuesday night. Story 14. That a 7-foot-tall rabbit would break into my house during the first Sunday after the Paschal full moon and leave eggs everywhere. We would go to the mall to see the Easter Bunny, and my mom would be all, "That's who leaves the eggs in our house." Scared me so much, to be honest. Story 15. A coworker and friend convinced me and a group of friends he was fighting cancer. It went on for months of us being supportive and doing group activities together while he gave stories of horrible symptoms and chemotherapy. Not technically diagnosed by anyone, but it was basically Munchausen syndrome. Story 16. Do well in school, and you will do well in life. Education is the big lie for me, nothing more than a metrics-driven business. I worked my way up the ladder in a field completely different from my degree. And I am working alongside some super darn smart people who didn't graduate from college or have worked there since they got out of high school. I don't resent them for making the same or more than I do. Story 17, go to college. It will benefit you. It's a horrible joke masquerading as the best option for young adults graduating from high school. Go to college if you don't have to take out FAFSA, free application for federal student aid, or whatever the federal student loans are, or even private loans greater than $2,000 to $5,000. That's not to say never go to college, but make sure you can afford it and not have to pay back student loans that are a huge scam. My high school never talked about loans, credit, or financing. We had a personal finance class in freshman year for half a semester when we were ready to start applying for college. And being a first-generation college student, my parents were not much of a help in understanding that stuff because they never went through it themselves. And the guidance counselors at the college and high school level basically pushed me into it, saying that it would better my future. Going to a trade school isn't beneficial in the long run. Yet, they left out that the garbage man, those machinists, welders, HVAC, and many others were making as much or most likely more than them. Story 18. That if you work hard, there will still be Social Security for Generation X and younger generations to allow us to retire like our parents and grandparents have. Story 19. I was told, I love you, when all she really loved was the benefits and money I brought in while I was in the service. Story 20. That taxation is the price I pay to live in a civilized society. Pretty sure it's the price I pay to bail out corporations and bomb third world countries. Story 21. Yes, you can transfer these credits, and we will help fast-track your degree, said the admissions person. I gave up a good job, a solid living situation, and a 3-year relationship to move 200 miles to go to college, only to be told I would need to take 3 years of classes instead of just 1 semester. It began a 3-year depression and me having to rebuild my life again, for the second time in my life. I am also still paying off that college debt. Story 22. When I was young, my dad would tell me that he was the drummer for Led Zeppelin, and my mom would tell me if I swallowed my gum, the next time I farted, my behind would blow a huge bubble and I'd fly away. Story 23. The government has your best interests at heart. They are totally not in it to make mountains of money on insider trading and dodgy dealings. Story 24. I was taught in school that the Civil War was about states' rights and not slavery. I believed it for a long while. Story 25. Not me, but many Trump supporters believe Trump won in 2020. Lots were duped and stormed the Capitol because he told them to. Story 26. A friend in high school had to tell me that blue balls is just a figure of speech. Your balls don't literally turn blue. Story 27. They said they would back pay my raise after all the company acquisition stuff was smoothed out. I got the raise, but the new company vetoed the 3 or 4 months of back pay, so I just quit and focused on school. Story 28. Well, I myself am the one who told the lie when I was younger. But being an adult is so much better than having to go to school. Story 29. If you do your master's degree, you will get a good job and earn good money. Me, being 41, living in a 2-bedroom flat with my 2 cats, driving a Suzuki Swift, with no chance of owning a house, can't even afford the land. Story 30. I was 18 and some hot, slightly older woman wanted to get in touch. It turned out to be some basement troll doing this to a bunch of guys. Reflecting on this now, it really took me too long to see through the nonsense. I can't remember if it was on ICQ or MSN. Story 31. When I was a kid, I believed that good people were rewarded and that bad people were punished. In reality, this is often reversed. Story 32. My recruiter told me I am getting a $10,000 enlistment bonus for going into the Army. I got nothing but pain and rage. Story 33. That family loves you, and no matter what your mom does to you in terms of abuse, you have to take care of her. Story 34. If I do well in high school and go to and graduate from college, I will easily get a career, raise money, buy a house, and so on. I'm 31 with 3 college degrees, no career, and still living with parents with whom I don't get along. Story 35. I got catfished by a woman in Boston once. Her pictures were from 9 years prior. She had gained about 100 pounds and was a raging alcoholic. It was all bad. Story 36. Police is your friend. Like, yeah, sometimes, but if they ask you questions, even in a traffic stop, it's not to help you. Story 37. I love you and I want to be with you forever, said my ex-husband, who had an affair with my now ex-best friend forever. Edit O, and regarding Mormonism. Story 38. I'm clean. These two words I've heard recurring throughout my childhood, but nobody wants to believe their own parent is the bad guy. Eventually, I learned the kinds of symptoms people get when they're high on different drugs as I grew up. But for some reason, people still say it with conviction like they're believable. Story 39. When my brother and I were kids, our grandmother had bunnies, and she told us they were pets. Eventually, she told us that the health inspectors had to take away the bunnies. Years later, she revealed that she had actually killed them and told us it was chicken at that time. Story 40. Oh, and that police exist to serve and protect us and are the good guys. Glad I grew out of that one. Story 41. I'm sorry, but I can't fulfill this request. Story 42. I believe that whole notion of, if you both have braces and you kiss, they'll get stuck together, until I actually kissed someone with braces, and they were like, you know that's fake, right? Story 43. I can't think of any instances I've been deceived, but my friends and I convinced our wives that one of our friends had a chronic issue with excessive masturbation. That's why his visits to the bathroom always took so long, and when we went to the pool, he would stay in the sauna by himself after we got out. They believed it for a couple of years until one day, they mentioned it to him at a party. Story 44. You should totally do this midlife career change. You will be getting job offers on LinkedIn for six-figure jobs within 6 months. Guaranteed. 9 months later, still making half of what I was before. Now enrolled in an MBA to try to help. Story 45. In a world where time and distance seek to part us, know that my love for you remains steadfast and unwavering. In this fleeting existence, one thing remains constant: my devotion to you. Forever and always, I will only love you. She did not, in fact, only love me. She moved across the country and had a relationship with my cousin. Story 46. I like you too. I have a paragraph that summarizes to I love you. I have 3 lines saying, I actually have a boyfriend. I never liked you. Sorry. Story 47. In relation to 2 ex-partners, we are just really good friends now. In relation to what they are looking for relationship-wise, I am cool with a relationship or just hooking up. Story 48. If you show up to work every day, don't take vacation and are always on time, your employer will value and reward you equitably. Yeah, not so much. Turns out it's like raising your hand and asking for more work and being reliable is security. For the company, not you. It's a cultural thing too. Others get resentful, think you're strange, and then when you finally say, you know what, I have all this accumulated paid time off saved up, I would like to take off a few days. You've gone against convention, true story. But I always take off the week of Thanksgiving. I have plans. Yes, I know Crystal because I have covered for you that week for the last 8 years. This year I would like to take off. Understaffed and need someone to cover 2 positions? They know who won't say no. It's just a temporary assignment after all, and now after 3 years I'm sure the next new hire will get one of my new assignments. New hires, half of which are brought on above me in rank and salary. I'm just grouchy this week. I've been incredibly busy, and every time I try to hand off someone who is supposed to be training to take over for me, I get the work handed back with, this is too complicated. You need to see this one through. So when I don't hand off stuff because it's all complicated, I have a difficult assignment and all my project managers are needy, irrational, and put 0 effort into their paperwork while expecting miracles. I'm not helping get the new person ready to take over. A certain level of this has to be my own warped perception of the situation. Like I really am a mess up and they can only justify my continued employment by overcoming the poor quality of my work by hammering me with quantity. Story 49. When I was in kindergarten, we were reading the book Stone Soup. The teacher told our class that upon finishing the book, the class would get to actually have some stone soup as a treat. Being a curious kid, I asked my teacher if there were actually real stones in the soup. She replied, "Yeah, there are, so you probably don't want any." So, after having my mind made up that I didn't want any soup, I proudly told my teacher that I would pass. On the day we were supposed to have the soup, the teacher told the class to make their way over to the lunch area for a special treat, except me. I was asked to go to the other side of the room and put my head down. I remember the teachers laughing while looking at me all by myself. Story 50. If you don't get a degree, you'll end up sweeping floors for a living. I got a chemistry degree, worked in a laboratory, then the government cut funding to science research. After promising to increase it, all the research jobs dried up and my experience and degree became out of date. Now I clean offices for a living. Also, the lab work didn't pay particularly well, as I only had a bachelor's degree and not a master's or PhD.